In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to combine colored pencil and Neocolor 2 wax crayons on Pastelbord to create a still life. I'm using a 5x7 size gray pastel board, colored pencils, Neocolor 2 water-soluble wax crayon, bristle brushes, and watercolor brushes. I start my process with a simple line drawing using Col Erase pencils. I begin to block my colors using Neocolor 2 wax crayon starting with the background. I use medium pressure and linear strokes. The next step is adding water to the Neocolor 2 wax crayon. Neocolor 2 crayons are softer than colored pencils and are extremely responsive to a wet brush. I use a watercolor brush to dissolve them and move the pigment around. They are light fast and have very strong pigment concentration, so a little goes a long way. If you used excess water, you can always come back on top of that with more Neocolor as needed. The pastel board takes several layers of wet Neocolor 2 without losing its texture. I let this layer dry overnight before I start layering the colored pencils. Once the Neocolor layer is completely dry, I start adding colored pencils on top. I begin with the background using French grays. I keep the pencils fairly sharp and use angle strokes. I overlap the colors and blend them using a stiff bristle brush. I usually have separate bristle brush for each family of color. The sanded texture of the pastel board combined with the wax quality of the pencils makes the blending look seamless. I keep repeating this process and build up to my required value scale. It takes only a few layers of colored pencils to achieve the needed value because of the initial addition of Neocolor 2. The final steps involves adding details to the piece. I'm adding the details using Prismacolor Dark Umber and Burnt Ochre. I use a blender pencil in the end to preserve the highlights from the varnish. Now the piece is ready to be varnished. The versatility of the board lets me use fixative and varnish so that I can frame my piece without glass.